Hi, I'm Monica Gingold and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neural, an agency that helps both brands and talent tell their story. To learn more, just visit neural.com. That's NEURALLE.com. My guest this week, Monica Gingold, co-founder of Tonic Agency, makeup artist and hairstylist. We're just having a good old chat about Sydney earlier. Not Sydney, but pretty much everywhere outside.
Everywhere other than here.
Were you travelling much for work or anything like that? Before
pre-COVID. Not so much last year. I was in 2019. I was pregnant, so didn't get to travel much. But the year before that, and years leading up to that, I was travelling a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. We were meant to go up to Sydney this Friday, but it's definitely not happening.
Yeah.
Definitely not happening.
And hopefully I can go on my Noosa holiday in 2 weeks.
Oh, true. That's right. You did mention that. What's going to happen if you can't? What are you going to do?
I think we'll just do a local Victorian
staycation
holiday. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see Melbourne and Sydney. I think they were saying that hotel occupancy rates are 30%. Obviously Sydney's in lockdown now, but before that, it's been 30%, so it's super affordable to go to hotels. Ordinarily, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Now, as with all guests, we like to start off at the early stages of their life.
Yep.
So
it's like therapy.
Yeah, it is like therapy. That's a good point. What's your earliest inception memory?
My earliest memory ever?
Yeah.
I have a memory when I was about 2, drinking from a bottle, a milk bottle.
Yeah.
And it was a really hot night and I was lying in bed with my parents watching TV.
Do you remember what was on TV?
No, I don't, but I remember that it was really hot and I was just in a singlet and a nappy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember, why do you think you remember that in particular? Do you think it was just the stage that memory started to happen?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nothing memory, but when I sort of realised that was my earliest memory and that I was in a nappy and drinking out of a milk bottle, it's like I was a baby. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I have a good memory. I can remember a lot from my childhood.
Like a photographic type memory?
Not quite, but a good memory for events and I remember things that people say, which is great for having arguments with my husband. You said...
I remember. Now, when you remember those things, is that because you're thinking of the image? Because I've tried explaining this to Lauren because I've got a very good memory as well. Her mum does as well. And we both agree that it's you can remember the scene, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's a visual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Lauren was telling me that she doesn't really think about memories in as much as that way. Not as much image-based, but more sounds and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. My husband remembers things by food, by what he ate.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. I'll be like, don't you remember this person's birthday party? He's like, no. We were at this venue. No. You were wearing that shirt? No. And goes, oh, I ate mussels. I'm like, yes, that's what you ate.
Nice. I like that. Your parents, growing up, what did they do?
My mum's a teacher.
Okay.
But she was always very creative and had little hobby businesses on the side, making baby accessories, headbands and socks and things like that.
Okay.
And growing up, my dad had a timber and building supplies company.
Okay.
But also he's also quite creative in his own way. He studied engineering and used to making stuff and kind of Mr. Fix-It around the house.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this timber business was his own or he worked for someone? Okay.
Yeah, it was his own business.
Was there any lessons that you remember picking up from your parents directly or indirectly at all?
I always remember my mum telling my dad he didn't pay himself enough. That was an ongoing
that's pretty typical
theme.
of owning a business.
Yeah, them talking about business. And I remember when my mum would make these babies' headbands, she just sold them in little baby boutiques. I think at one point she got them into David Jones and then someone famous from the 80s or 90s, so I don't remember who it was, they were on the cover of Women's Day with their baby and the baby was wearing one of her headbands and that was a really big deal that her headband got on the cover of Women's Day. Yeah.
Interesting. Did she keep the copy of the magazine?
I don't know. She must have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the shit you like. I love stuff like that, little stories like that.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that she must have kept it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so growing up, they were essentially running their own businesses in a way, you often see a lot about, like, I mirror my dad a lot.
Yep.
Do you find that your parents were like really hard workers and then that was imparted on to you at any way?
Yeah, I think growing up knowing that it was an option, that you could do your own business and do something that you really enjoyed. But really for most of my childhood, my mum was teaching. So she took time off to have kids and do these little businesses and then went back to teaching when I was in primary school.
Yeah.
And she just worked so hard as a teacher. Like, she was one of those amazing teachers. Growing up, I felt like she was a celebrity because everywhere that we went,
People would
were
know,
like, Mrs. Gingold. Like, they couldn't believe that she had like this life outside of school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
But
funny.
probably my real introduction to business started when I was a teenager. I was always really into hair and makeup just as a hobby, and my school offered a program that you could go to the TAFE nearby and do a TAFE subject instead of a school subject. And I heard that there was hairdressing. You could do Certificate 2 in hairdressing, counted as a school subject. And I was like, yes, please, I really, really want to do that. I went to a private school. I was the only person in the school who's ever done the program.
Okay, so is this the VCE vet system?
Not even. I was in year 9.
Okay.
So it was just counted as a school subject, didn't count towards VCE.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I went and did that. So on Fridays I didn't go to school. I went to TAFE.
Wow.
And learnt to do a bit of basic hairdressing and all the fundamentals of hairdressing, which was awesome. And I learnt to braid hair, which I didn't know how to do. And then I really wanted to practice braiding hair. So I have little cousins who are like five-ish years younger than me. And I braided their hair in like Bali braids. You know, like when people would go on holiday to Bali and they'd get like the really skinny cornrows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would practice on them. And then they went to school and my auntie rang me and said, all the girls in their class want their hair done like that. And they all asked for your phone number. Can I start giving your phone number out to people? And I was like 15 and like living at home, and I was like, sure, you can give out like my parents' landline because I didn't have a mobile. And people started calling and were like, can I bring my kid? Like, how much do you charge? And I was like,
Wow.
I don't know. How much do I? And I would say to my parents, how much should I charge? They were like, I didn't know what the going rate was. I had no idea.
What did you start at?
I think I worked it out. It was like $25 a kid. It took me about an hour and a half.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
What year are we talking?
This would have been like 2002 maybe.
Okay.
Ish, early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so for the summer holidays, I would just have like all these kids coming to my parents' house, I'd plonk them in front of the TV and just braid their hair. I would ring the orthodontist and say, I need those rubber bands that, you know, that like...
No shit, yeah, the
and then
little
go,
ones.
because they give them to you for free. So I'd go and pick up these little baggies of tiny rubber bands.
That's
and that's
so funny.
what I used to braid their hair, to tie off the braids. And I just had kid after kid after kid for the school holidays. And every child that I did would go to their family and then those kids would see it and then get another phone call. And so that was my
word of mouth referral.
business. That was my very first business introduction to business and being a business owner when I was like 15.
Wow.
Yep.
So how did the business end up going? At some point, did you say, I've had enough of this? Or
Yeah, I think probably as I was getting close to year 12, I didn't want to do it maybe that year, or I'd only do it in the school holidays and then sort of got over it and wanted to start charging more. But it definitely showed me that it was really easy to build a business. If you did a good job, it was really easy to grow a clientele.
Yeah. As long as the product is good.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of principles there that you're learning in, like, without realizing.
Yeah, I was learning a lot without realising.
Yeah.
And so when I decided that I really wanted to do hair and makeup as a career, my parents could see, like, yeah, I was
Like, it
getting
was a
clients
no-brainer.
already.
Yeah.
And what if I could do more than just braids? What if I could do different hairstyling and do makeup as well? And it was just kind of like, I think a lot of people have fear going into a creative business thinking like, oh, you know, can you make enough money? Will you get clients? And it was just like, I'm already doing it. And
I'm it.
yeah, without even really trying. So it made me realise, good work, power of word of mouth. You can build a business.
So we grew up in similar areas. I had a lot of Jewish mates growing up, played a bit of soccer and footy with Ajax, and there's always a strong crossover between there's a strong Greek community there and quite a lot of, like, obviously a lot of Jews in Caulfield, and we all had parents that were very similar. They were running businesses. So in that era, so you're only a couple of years older than me. My dad was always like, you've got to do a profession. Like you've got to be an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer, a consultant or banker or something like that. He did not want, he was a printer, right? So he had a factory in Moorabbin. He did not want me to go into that business at all. And he was a fourth generation printer. It's kind of sad almost because like there's all that history in the family. Anyway, so were your parents at all like that? Did they have like this obsession with a certain career at all?
No, I was so lucky to have the parents that I did. My grandparents were a bit like that because they're more old school and they would say just like maybe just go to uni, like just go do arts.
Just to fall back on it,
just
right?
do arts. That's what my grandmother used to say. But my grandfather used to come over and visit us every day, and every day he saw I had a different person sitting in the chair in front of the TV, and he was just like, you're like, and then he'd see them like hand cash over and then leave. And then the next person came and handed cash over and he was like, this is amazing. So I think once he sort of saw it actually physically happening, and I wasn't going to go to uni. I had no interest in doing that. So my parents were amazingly supportive. And also, just as a little bit of a sort of side story, I dealt with chronic fatigue for most of my teenage years.
That's right.
I really struggled with school and chronic fatigue, and I had a lot of time off school. But when the school musical was on and I could do makeup for the school musical, I just couldn't keep me at home. I had to go. It was like the most inspiring and, I don't know, it was just the most amazing experience that didn't matter how I was feeling. I was prepared to deal with the consequence of being really unwell if I could just go and do makeup at school. So I think when they also saw how much of a positive impact it was having on my life, it was like, you have to do that as a career. How could you not do that? It's making you so happy.
Yeah. Chronic fatigue's I remember for me was like a scary one. I just remember this older boy at school because I was playing soccer in the sort of older team or the senior school team, and like because of that, because I was younger and naive, people would like point things out to me, and it sounds awful in hindsight, but he pointed out a kid who had cerebral palsy and he was like, that boy has chronic fatigue, like don't get chronic fatigue. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, that's fucking awful.
It's those are quite different things.
It's very, very different things. But so my brother's had chronic fatigue for quite a while actually. I think he still takes medication for it. Explain that to how that sort of comes about.
It happens differently for different people. So some people it can be post-viral. So after having, what's it called when you get the really sore throat?
Like tonsillitis?
The other one.
Like a infection?
Yeah. Now I've got like a mental blank. Oh my God, this is what happens after you have a baby.
Laryngitis, meningitis.
Like mono. What's mono?
Oh, mononuclear.
Glandular fever.
Glandular fever?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's what it was, is glandular fever.
Yeah, so often people get chronic fatigue after having glandular fever. Okay. That's not what happened to me. I just was really involved in school life and really involved in a lot of co-curricular activities and just kind of burnt myself out. Like one year just was very active in different school activities, and then the summer holidays came around and I just sort of fell into like a pile and thought I'll just rest it off for the whole school holidays, and 6 weeks later I was no better. I just was so like deeply fatigued, and I just became like a really different person, and you need to have feeling really, really unwell for about 6 months to get a diagnosis. So
wow.
It was a bit of a journey.
Is it a functional disease? Like I've got IBS and they call that a functional disease, which is really it's actually a symptom of something else.
Yeah. There's a lot that's really unknown about chronic fatigue, so they don't really know. I don't know if it would be called a functional disease, but now they're talking that it could be a autoimmune related disease. So there's just really a lot that's unknown, and it's a syndrome. So different people may experience it in quite different ways and to different degrees of severity as well.
It's the same thing with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. It is a syndrome. Yeah, that stuff's really hard because it's chronic. You spend so long in the system. Yeah. Like I've only now come out of it. I first found I had IBS when I was like 21, 22. I'm 31 recently, and I think only in the last year I've finally been able to settle on like how to manage it.
Yeah. And you probably go through periods where it's like more under control and less under control and trying to figure out what your triggers were. And
yeah, all that stuff was like painful because when you have something like that, they always think it's something else.
Yeah.
And so you have to get this regime of tests, so to speak.
Similar with chronic fatigue, because you have to kind of rule out that feeling tired is a really common symptom of lots of other things. So they have to rule out that it's not your iron or your diet or sleep related or,
Yeah, in 10 years, I think I've had 4 gastroscopy colonoscopies. Just like totally unnecessary when now they know what the actual thing was.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that. And you spend so much money on medical bills. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so early studies and career, high school, at a very young age, you obviously realised makeup's the thing.
Yep.
Makeup or hair is the thing. I had this note here that Jacob and I found around a teacher pushing you towards drama at high school to sort of learn how things were done. Does that sound right?
Sort of. Yes, sort of. So there was a teacher, it was like a student teacher came to do these like activities with us.
Okay.
I think I did drama because it was like a creative subject and I wasn't really into the academic stuff. And he sort of went around and asked everybody like what their passions were or what did they want to be when they grew up. And most people either didn't know or said something that I would consider pretty boring. And when I said that I really loved hair and makeup, and like mind you, I didn't know what that really meant because I knew I didn't want to be a hairdresser in a salon and I didn't want to be a beautician that did like waxing or like painted nails. That was also no interest. That was too small. But I really wanted to do hair and makeup and I thought maybe movies. That's sort of what I thought I would do. Like, how could I do famous people's hair and makeup? And he like lit up and he was like, okay, this is awesome and I can really help you. And was really encouraging of me pursuing that, not just as like this hypothetical dream.
Okay.
And there was a teacher at the school who used to be a makeup artist before she was a teacher and she was doing makeup for the school play. It was like a big deal at my school. They'd put on like quite a big production and they'd get outside directors in and it was like a whole thing. And she was going to do makeup for the school play and he said, I'm going to introduce you to her and she's going to, you can be her assistant. I was like, yes, please.
Nice.
And so because he was like a student teacher, he'd been like brought in to do this extracurricular kind of stuff. That wouldn't have happened from any of the regular teachers in the school, even the like careers counsellors, other than the one who introduced me to the TAFE course, which was amazing. The school was like kind of like your parents. It was like a really academic focus.
Oh yeah, they were pretty much useless. The career counsellors for me at my school were useless as well.
So the one who told me about the TAFE was awesome, but then when in year 11 and 12 you had to pick your subjects and then do your application through VCE, I'd found the course that I wanted to do, which was a Diploma of Entertainment Makeup at Swinburne.
Okay.
And when you had to put down 8 preferences, I remember it so clearly going for the meeting. And yet, there was 8 lines and you had to put in your preferences. And I said, okay, number 1, entertainment makeup at Swinburne. She goes, okay, number 2. And I was like, that's all.
Yeah.
She's like, you're going to put something else down. I said, no. She said, so what are you going to do if you – it was an interview. You had to get in. You had to get accepted. They only took 20 people a year. It was really small. And I said, then I'll go and do a hairdressing course and then I'm going to apply again the next year and they'll take me because they want people that do hair and makeup that I'd known. I'd gone to meet the coordinator and that's what she'd said. If for whatever reason you don't get in, go and do hair and then you're more likely to get in second year. And she just wouldn't let me. She's like, why don't we put down graphic design? I said, because I don't want to be a graphic designer. She said, why don't we put down teaching? You could do art teaching. I said, because I don't want to be an art teacher. I was like, I don't understand this conversation. You're the careers counsellor. How am I educating you? This is what I want to do. How many people come in here knowing so clearly what they want to do when they're 17? Yeah, so she was so useless and like wanted to put all these other things down. I was like,
I remember this exact conversation. I remember after I got my score because I missed out on, I was like, I don't know why. I was so set on going and doing commerce at Monash and I'd missed out by like half a mark. Or like, you had to get like 83 and it was like 82.5 or something like ridiculous like that. And she was like, oh, you should go to ACU and like, because they have like a similar system and you can transfer over and all that. And so I did that and I remember getting there and thinking like, why the fuck am I at this uni? Like the course is not anything like what the commerce course was like. And also you had to do these compulsory sort of philosophy subjects, like religious philosophy. And I was like, this is not going to help me at all. And I just remember, the conversations I had were not, they weren't useful.
Yeah.
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 But it's good to know, at least I was so misguided as to what I wanted to do at that age.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were very certain.
Yeah, I was really lucky, that my parents were so on board, and we did go and seek out an external careers counsellor who was the one who told me about the course at Swinburne. So if I hadn't had that guidance and I was just relying on the school for that, I don't know, I would have ended up here eventually, just probably in a bit of a roundabout way. Yeah.
That's for sure. So, okay, that makes sense now as to where you studied, because we're like, we can't find out where she studied.
Yeah.
So the first year, I think, post-uni was like full of blood, sweat, tears and a bit of money out of pocket. I was reading about the time you went up for Mercedes Fashion Week in Sydney. When you think about that time before you really had your own brand, what was sort of the best and worst thing about that early stage of your career? In those early years, I just really had it in my head that it really wasn't about the money, because if I got bogged down, I was lucky I was really young. When I left school, I was 18, so I wasn't in a hurry to move out of home. My parents weren't in a hurry to get rid of me, so I was really lucky that being concerned about making money wasn't such an issue. So I could put my hand up and do lots of things for free because I was just really focused on networking. Okay.
So anytime I heard of anything going, I was like, I'll do it. I just knew that every job that I did ended up with another job. I would meet someone on a job that then when they had another job, they would say, I worked with this girl Monica last week. She was great. Let's use her. And I realised really quickly how easy it was to kind of build a community and get passed around. So, just was really dedicated to putting my hand up to do anything, no ego. I just wanted to get my name out there and get experience, because you do a course, which was awesome, but then you come out, you have no experience. Everyone in my class was white and in their 20s, maybe 30s. And I hadn't put makeup on anybody else. I'd never put makeup on an Asian person or an Indian person or a black person, nothing. It was just so narrow, this little box that I was able to put makeup on. So I just needed to get experience. Okay. And while I learnt theatre makeup and that sort of thing, I didn't actually have experience being backstage in a theatre or working on actors. We worked on each other in the class. We'd pair up and work on each other. So I needed to work on men and people of different ages. And I just needed to get as much experience as I could. So I worked really, really hard, even though I wasn't making much money. Yeah. But it paid off because, slowly it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I met a couple of photographers. There was a turning point where I met some really amazing photographers who were really on quite a good trajectory to their success, and they liked working with me. Okay. And so they would, whenever they could put a team together, they would request me. And so we had a really great working dynamic. So being good at makeup is really just a small part of the job. Being good on set and being easy to work with for photographers and clients and all of that really, makes a really big difference. And as they started to get bigger, because all the work comes through the photographers, makeup there's a hierarchy of... I
was going to say.
Yeah, makeup is not the bottom, but not the top. You don't book the makeup first. You book the photographer first and the models and that sort of thing. So when a photographer wants you, as a makeup artist, that's really amazing.
So you probably realised then that the person who was really directing a lot of these things was the photographer. Yeah,
definitely. And I had a couple of photographers who were really happy for me to sit and watch them retouch. So I'd see them zoom in on these images 100%, 1,000%, to see the eye on a screen this big. And I'd be like, oh, my eyeliner was a little bit wonky. Okay. And I had to train my eye to see what a computer was going to see, not just what I could see looking at a person.
Wow.
And if my makeup was awesome, there was less for her to retouch.
Okay.
And then she was as I got better, her job got easier. So it was a really amazing working dynamic that really trained me to be a better artist.
Yeah. Do you think back on that period, was there a particular photographer that you've really had the strongest working relationship with to this day?
Emily Abbey, we worked together a lot in our early careers. She lives in Sydney now, and she's not doing as much photography anymore, but in those early years we worked together a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there was a period where you fell into doing weddings after being asked to do one.
Yeah.
Obviously that leads to recommendations, that word of mouth component. There was this constant trend, it sort of seems in past interviews you spoke about, influencers asking you to join them on shoots, which is sort of another, lead component in the actual shoot itself. You've worked across many different brands, many different festivals. I got here Melbourne Fashion Week, the Brownlow, spring racing and so forth. You're still doing it now, obviously, but the dynamic of, you've gone from less, I don't know. I mean, I'm making assumptions, but when you're running an agency like Tonic, you become more of a creative director in a way, like what you would have had at the Mercedes Fashion Week. You've got sort of this head makeup artist and then a bunch of assistants or people doing stuff on the tools below you.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious, before you got to that point, is there a particular moment you look back on fondest? Maybe it was a shoot or
starting to do Fashion Week. It was I feel like it was a turning point in my career, and how I got into doing it was also, I have two really such positive stories about how I was lucky enough to get into it, because every makeup artist wants to do Fashion Week, and they have small teams, maybe 20 people in a team. So one was, I was doing a photo shoot. I don't even know how it came about. Got a phone call, got asked to do a photo shoot for Who magazine with a cast of a TV show, and there was quite a few of them. So it was me and Nigel Stanislaus, who's another amazing makeup artist, and he was doing half of them and I was doing the other half. And he's kind of a big deal, and I hadn't met him before, so that was really awesome that I got to work alongside him. And then I didn't know, but he'd actually just been asked to be the creative director for Maybelline, and they were going to be the major sponsor for Fashion Week for the next 5 years.
Sydney Fashion Week or Melbourne?
Yeah, in Sydney, yeah. So they did Sydney Fashion Week, the Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, which is in April, and then they do the Fashion Festival, which was in September. So two festivals a year. Yeah. And he was putting his team together, and he asked me to join after seeing me work, which was amazing. And if I hadn't done that job, I wouldn't have met him. I don't know if it would have been so easy for me to get on the team.
Interesting.
And I was a junior. So when he said, you're a junior, can't pay you, and it's in Sydney. So I had to fly myself up to Sydney, put myself up, worked my ass off, 3 shows a day. It was so... when I think about who I was at the start of the week and who I was at the end of the week, I was a different person.
Yeah. It's one of those moments, right? The anxiety, the tension you feel from it, but it's like being in another world.
Yeah. And I went into it being I've been asked to do Fashion Week. This is so amazing. And then I was the runt of the litter. All the other people on the team were amazing and had a lot more experience in that world than me. So I was just kind of looking up at them being oh, they're all so amazing. And I had a lot to learn, which was... It was incredible. It was such an amazing week. And then when I did Fashion Week in Melbourne, Ray Morris was the director for those shows, and she was running a workshop, so you could go and learn with her in person, and I paid $1,000 for the day to do the course with her.
Jeez.
And you had to bring a model. So she talked for the first half of the day. You had to bring a model, and then you'd work on the model in the afternoon to practice the skills that she talked about during the day. And most people just brought a friend, but I brought a professional model because I was I want to get good photos and I want to have a really good canvas to work on.
Putting this money into it.
Yeah, exactly. And she saw me doing a little bit of makeup and she was oh, you've got it. I'm going to give you a challenge, and gave me a photo of an Alexander McQueen runway makeup and said, can you do this? And so I just copied it. And then she was yeah, that was awesome. And she rang me that night and she was okay, that was really good and you're going to be on my team for Fashion Week. So that was, I didn't know she was recruiting, but it was amazing. Wow. And that was really a turning point. And still to this day, she recommends me. She's in Sydney, and when she has clients in Melbourne that need to be done, she puts me forward for it.
I think that emphasises, I've been guilty of this for the last few years that I haven't, you need to invest in yourself consistently.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do need to put a bit of money into it.
Absolutely.
I've had this thing recently where I've really put a lot of money and time into learning to be a better strategist. I've had to do, not courses, but a lot of reading and coursework that you got to pay good money for. At least $1,000 or something like that out of pocket.
Yeah.
And in the past, I would just be oh yeah, I'll just do it through the business or I'll just learn it on the job. But no, I think those are where you make that's where you make the jump.
Totally. And no education is wasted. You'll always learn something. And it's an investment in yourself. And
I'm curious then, after that little investment, you do this So the short-term gain is you get picked up to do the fashion week as an assistant.
Yeah.
What was the long-term impact that was still correlated to that day? Can you think of anything?
Yeah, well, a lot, because then I think people saw that I was doing Fashion Week and that's like really respected. So it was great. I mean, I say resume. Makeup artists don't have a resume. You have like a list of stuff that you've done. So it was great to add to my list. And if I ever went for interviews with clients, it was really impressive that I'd done that sort of work.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of skills that then I was able to apply to different jobs. So like I would learn skills from Ray and from Nigel watching them do the demos on the model, and then I'd do it on my model and be like, oh, that was awesome. And then 2 weeks later I'd do a photo shoot and I would apply that skill that before I did Fashion Week I didn't have. And it worked amazingly, and the clients would be like, oh, that looks amazing, and the photographers would really like the effect that it had. It was like, okay, I like learned how to do new stuff. Because it's so easy once you've done your training. You think, yeah, now I know everything. But no one knows everything. Like there's always room to learn
You're always
more.
learning.
Always learning. I still like to do update training and new education. And as soon as you think you know everything, you've lost where you need to be.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We were saying before when we were getting coffees downstairs that it's sort of like the market, like any creative industry, anyone can get into it.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because how do people discern whether someone's good or not?
Right.
And part of that is, obviously training, but training can lead to things like that list that you spoke about. It's the same thing in the agency business. Is all people want to see is case studies. Do you have a case study?
Yeah.
This brand, that brand, like that's all they just want to know, that you can do the job and you're not going to screw it up.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
You. Yes, you. Are you intrigued by this episode? If so, go to our footer on the website, neurale.com, neurale.com. We're going to give you an insight. Each week it's going to be on business, marketing, or a topic that we covered in the episode. At all, we would love your support, and it would help us in developing the intellect around this series. But without going on too much longer, let's get back into this episode. Now, speaking of agencies.
Yeah.
Tonic.
Yeah.
So, it's quite obvious that it's smart actually how you cottoned on to this. You were inundated. You're at a point when you're inundated for work.
Yep.
And you realize you could probably capture that value of referral essentially in a business that you own.
Yes.
Which was very, very smart. But, I know you met Tahli at a wedding. I'm just curious, like, when did you go, okay, this works, let's do it this way, as opposed to the referral component?
Yeah.
Because for me, when I started the agency, we had people who would ask us, how do you make a podcast? And I'd give them a list, and then it wouldn't really amount to anything. They wouldn't do it, or they'd say it's too hard.
Yeah.
Eventually got to a point where we're like, okay, fuck it, we'll just do it for you, and we'll charge you this amount extra on top of what it costs for us.
Yeah. Yes.
When was that?
So I did have a go kind of early on when I was really busy with weddings, and I couldn't, if I was already booked that day, I couldn't service a particular inquiry. I'd say, I'm going to call a friend and be like, hey, can you do this job for me? And she'd say, yep. And then I'd go back to the client and say, my friend can do it for you. And I'd try and manage it, but I was just doubling my admin. So I was like, this is too hard. And while I'm out on jobs, I can't reply to emails. So I just was like, couldn't do it by myself. And I just started saying to clients, oh, this is my friend, A, B, and C. Here are the people you can try, rather than trying to actually manage it myself. And then they'd come back and they'd say, oh, she's not available that day. Do you have someone else? And I'd say, yeah, here's another name. And then they'd come back. She's also not available. Do you have someone else? And I was like, okay, this isn't working either. So how can I help these people and still be involved but not make so much more work for myself that I was like drowning in admin and like doing all the scheduling and stuff. I could cope doing it just for myself, but I really couldn't cope doing it for one other person. It was just, it's so much work. So much goes into planning the hair and makeup for a wedding. There's so much back and forth that a lot. Yeah. And I just was kind of like, I'm not going to do that. I had just put it aside for many, many years. It sat in the back of my head. I'd had a similar arrangement. I'd actually done it for another business. Another girl in my early career was running a sort of similar hair and makeup agency. I worked for her. I saw some things that she did that was good, other things that I kept thinking if I was running this business, I would do it differently. So I really kept all that stuff and thought one day I'll do it. And when people would ask me for referrals and if they'd come back to me, I was just kind of like, oh, well, like, knew that there was all this potential, but as a solo person, I couldn't cope with it. And then I met Tahli. So Tahli was an event planner, and I was doing makeup for lots of weddings that she was coordinating. So we met doing jobs. Like I would do the bride's hair and makeup in the morning. She'd be there like setting up. If they were having the wedding at home, she'd be there setting up. So we met each other that way. And then I got engaged, and I asked her if she would do my wedding because she's had an amazing vibe. She has an aura. Like, she's just one of those people who just gets everything. And I really liked her energy, and she was calm but organised, and she just could tell she had a handle on things. And she actually wanted to get out of doing weddings because she wanted to be with her kids on the weekend. And I was also kind of wanting to wind down the weddings, just being out every weekend and committing like a year ahead. And I was starting to think, I'm going to get married and might want to have a baby and don't want to then be blocked in for a whole year and can't have my baby because I've taken too many weddings. And so we were both kind of in this position where we wanted to kind of reduce what we were doing. And she actually said no, she wouldn't do my wedding. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, but you're going to do it. Like I just kept calling her, and now we laugh about it because she was saying to her husband, I don't know why she thinks I'm doing her wedding. She keeps calling me and talking to me like I'm doing her wedding. And I would say to my husband, I don't know why she keeps saying no. Like she's doing my wedding. Like why isn't she? So I forced her into it, and she said, okay, yours will be the last wedding that I do.
Okay. And
we had an awesome working dynamic. And yeah, it was like we joke now that it was kind of her and my wedding. Like we fell in love. And it was just so much fun. And after I really wanted to be friends with her, and we went out for a coffee, and she was saying she was like really done with weddings now. She didn't want to do it anymore. And she wanted to do something else still in the industry. She wanted to use the knowledge that she had being an event planner, and she really loved makeup. Like she loves makeup. She was my biggest fan, but she didn't want to be a makeup artist. She didn't want to actually be on the tools, but she was saying like, what could we do that like uses your skills and my skills, and maybe makeup education, and could we run workshops, and what could we do? And I sort of said to her, I've been like cooking this business in my head for all these years that I've never really been able to do it on my own. Would you be interested in starting a hair and makeup agency together? And then I think like that night she emailed me like a business plan.
No shit.
And I was like, okay, she's the right person, and she gets things done. Like I always say she makes my dreams come true because I have these dreams, and then she actually does the stuff that needs to be done to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
So then it was a lot of talking. It was like 6 months of like going for coffee probably every 2 or 3 days to be like, how are we going to put this together? How is this going to work? What's our strategy going to be? Who are our clients? We really spent a long time working out who we were and who we weren't.
That's important.
Yeah.
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 Because a lot of agencies try and do too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So we really got it down to a point that we very much saw eye to eye. It's an amazing partnership in that we have really similar values and a really similar vision, but a completely opposite skill set.
Yeah. It's very similar to Lauren and I. Like, you're clearly the creative one because obviously you're a hair and makeup artist.
Yeah.
And she, as an event planner, would have to be very conscientious and drilled and
and organised and diligent. And I had the contacts, I had the artists, I knew who I wanted to have in the agency.
Okay.
And so in those early meetings, a lot of them were coming to meet with us because they were my friends and colleagues, and they were really interested in what I was doing. But it was kind of like, I'm going to be handing over to Tahli. Like Tahli will be taking over. Once the business is launched, like I'm actually not going to be that involved in the day-to-day running of it. I'm involved in the vision, but she's actually running the show.
Okay. So it's you looking at the vision and the creative side of things. Tahli's obviously running the day-to-day.
Yeah, and she really has more like the business mind, making sure we were never in the red, managing the money, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's really was her department.
When did you notice that the business started to turn? Like as in a positive direction, that this was a scalable thing that you could offer?
Like the very first week. It was unbelievable. We thought that Tahli would do like 3 days a week on admin. She'd still be able to freelance as an event planner on the side. I thought we'd give our artists a couple of weddings here and there. The day it was like, okay, emails are set up, we're ready to go. all the inquiries that I got, I just had a cut and paste email that I replied. I was like, I'm so sorry I'm not available. Here's my team. They're all amazing. I've handpicked the team. Please submit an inquiry.
Okay.
And Tahli rang me like 2 days later and she was like, you have to come over. I really need help. And I went and she'd printed out every single person that I had referred on had inquired. I thought most of them would look and be like, nah, if it's not Monica, like I don't want that. I don't want the team. I'm going to go and find another freelancer. I want to pick who I have. But they all went over and she printed them all out because she was like, okay, and the diary and I have to correlate all this stuff. We had like very basic systems in place when we opened. So very quickly we realised we had to have like a different calendar system and set things up. So there was a lot of figuring stuff out as we were rolling. And then it was like we'd send people a proposal, we'd send them for a trial, they'd want a book. Straight away, it was off and running and Tahli was doing it full time.
Damn.
It was amazing. We always said like most people start a business and then try and get clients. But for us, it was the other way around. I had the clients and I needed a business to service them because they were coming to me and they were like, so what do we do if you won't do it? And so I was like, okay, I need to set something up to capture them so that I'm still involved, but also to help them because they don't know where else to go.
Yeah. It sort of really underlines the power of Instagram and influencer marketing.
And we had a really good website.
Yeah.
We had a really, really good website.
Very transparent. Like the prices are clearly displayed.
Yeah.
The talent is clearly displayed.
Yeah.
You can kind of make the decision then and there.
Yeah. And something that was really important, I had figured out from running my own business and doing the weddings myself was that people will inquire and not really give up very much information. There might be a wedding date. They write to me, they say, hey, are you available on this date? The end. And I'd say, like how many people need to be done? Do you need hair and makeup? What time do you need to be ready by? Where are you getting ready? Because then I write back and be like, yeah, I'm available. And then they're like, great, it's in like New South Wales and like it's going to be like a 5-hour drive for me to get there. And I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't said yes to that. So I need to know the information before I agree. So we wrote this amazing form on the website so that when people inquire, they have to fill in all these details so that it really reduces all that back and forth of trying to figure that out. And as well, like there's a tick box of like what kind of vibe your wedding is. So if it's like more like boho and winery or if it's more like elegant and black tie. And so then we kind of get an idea about who this person is because people inquire, we don't know who they are. We have quite a big group of artists. They're all really similar, but they also all have their strengths and styles. And so by people filling in this form, it really paints a picture of who they are. So we can actually match them with the most appropriate artist. And it really eliminates a lot of that back and forth. Sometimes people don't have all the information, but I think when people fill in the form, they really like it. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is fun. Like I can see like if you compare it to, I think what Lauren said, comparison to other websites, it's actually nice that it's prescriptive because you know as a customer that the first thing you're trying to do on the offset is trying to find out whether there's a fit or not.
Yeah.
So you can work out it's not a time waster.
Exactly. Well, it ends up wasting a lot more time when people don't fill it in and try and come around like other channels. Like they send us a DM on Instagram and it's like, just go to the website.
Please, there's
this.
We
that's
spent
there
this
for
time
a reason. But also then we set up these amazing back-end systems that when people fill in the form, that goes into a back-end system that becomes like a deal and it gets moved along like a process of like this booking system so that we can always make sure that we know where a booking is up to at any one stage so that nobody falls through the cracks and they don't get forgotten.
Yeah.
Because we also know that not everyone wants to book straight away. They want to send an inquiry. They want to get a quote. They might want to shop around, compare prices, have a think about it. In the meantime, they get distracted doing the venue or the catering. They forget a little bit about makeup. So we're able to then come back and be like, hey, do you still want to go ahead? And sometimes they're like, oh my God, totally forgot. Yes, I thought because I filled in the form that meant that I was booked in. And we're like, you need to like
Do you know what system you guys use?
It's Pipedrive at the back end.
Yeah.
And we use PandaDocs to send out proposals.
Okay.
So when someone inquires and we match them with it, we check that the artist that we think is the best fit is available, they get sent a proposal back in PandaDocs, which tells them who they're like a bio of their artist, pictures of their work, their invoice and a bit of a breakdown of the day and how it's going to work. So they actually get pretty much all the information they're going to need really early on in the process.
Yeah.
If they want to go ahead, they can pay the deposit and then they can organise a trial if they want one. They don't have to.
Yeah.
And then, it just means that the rest of the process is pretty
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty easy, yeah. Not all of them. We always say booking hair and makeup for a wedding is like a puzzle, and sometimes the puzzle is 2 pieces and then it goes off, and then sometimes it's 10 pieces and it goes off, and sometimes it's 20 pieces and it goes off, because sometimes what happens is someone will inquire and they'll say, it's for me and 5 bridesmaids and my mum, and that's fine, we can get someone for that. And it's like, actually, it's hair too. Okay, then we need a second artist. Yeah. Actually, my auntie wants to be done as well. Okay, so then we need a third artist, but the third artist isn't going to come just for one service. So then we need to split up all those services over the 3 artists.
That's right, yeah.
But then maybe some of those artists go, oh, but you originally told me it was going to be this many services and now you're saying it's less services. So then we need to manage expectations for the artists as well.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I just spoke to my photographer. Actually, now we need to be ready an hour earlier than I'd said, which means they have to start earlier. And sometimes weddings start very, very early.
Yeah, you've got to be there fucking early.
Yeah. So doing all those little adjustments to each booking creates quite a lot of back and forth in the admin end.
Plus trials.
Yeah, trials as well. And that's the sort of stuff that most makeup artists that I know hate that stuff. They just want to put the makeup on the person and go home. They don't want to be working out schedules. They don't want to be working out all the finer details. So the agency is amazing for clients, but it's also really amazing for the artists because they just get to focus on the part that they like and get a call and be like, hey, you free on this day? And they look in their diary and be like, you want to do 6 makeups that day? And they're like, yep.
Yeah.
Great. And
it just simplifies everything for them.
Definitely.
And you can see how it expands as well. You can start to look at technology and how can that solve some of these even human elements with the back and forth over time.
Yeah.
It's really, really fascinating. What have you learned from Tahli?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Is there something in particular that stands out?
Something in particular that stands out. I mean, I think the biggest thing is how important it is to have like a good partnership. Yeah, more than it's more like a life lesson than like a business lesson, I guess.
Yeah.
Just that we have a really good partnership and very balanced. We very much like listen to each other and respect what each other has to say, and often counsel each other through, you know, the difficulties that we're each experiencing in our personal life as well as in business. She's a bit older than me, so I feel like she's like a mentor for me in my life as well, not just in business, but specific to business. She's very risk averse.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we each take it in turns of being like the accelerator and the brakes. One of us will get an idea and then the other one will kind of be like, okay, but what about this? And we always make sure every decision we make is really measured, and it would be so easy to bite off more than we could chew, but if that's could be a recipe for failure. So we always make sure that anything that we're going to do, that we're going to start new and that we're going to look into is safe and measurable and achievable and but while still trying to grow the business. But it's also really hard when you're when you're working so hard in the business, it's really hard to work on the business.
Yeah, it's hard to see that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see that. So I guess that goes to the next point that interests me is like, where's the next element of growth? Like, obviously humans, we've got this inclination to think, okay, you've got to grow in some way.
Yeah.
For you, it's pretty obvious that what really matters is the creativity and the quality of the people that are on the roster, so to speak. So to expand that is not easy. You can't just throw on 10 new people and then all of a sudden you have more capacity.
Right.
They have to have a certain level, obviously.
Yes.
The go-to-market as well has mainly been, from the sounds of things, pretty organic.
Yes.
Like it's all Instagram.
Yep.
Not much paid advertising, no real emphasis on full-on advertising other than ensuring that Tonic is out there and has a presence on social media. So from your perspective, where does the next stage come for you guys? And, you know, is that as much about where the business is going versus where you are personally going in life?
Yeah. Okay. There's lots in there. So let's go back to part 1 of that statement. In terms of the marketing that we did, we haven't done any paid advertising. We don't advertise in wedding magazines or we haven't even done Facebook ads, nothing
Instagram,
like that. The Instagram is very organic, but something that we did really put a lot of emphasis on was a couple of PR events. So I do a lot for the Brownlow. I have clients in that world, and on a Brownlow day I could only do a couple, and I would get asked to do more than I could do. So we got a suite. We invested, instead of investing in advertising, we invested in a suite at Crown. I had my team with me. They were doing all the clients that I couldn't do. And we had a videographer with us and a photographer, and we pushed hard on Instagram with that event.
Right.
So people love Brownlow and that sort of stuff. And then people were kind of saying, who are these people? That's why people often say to us, we see you everywhere on Instagram, but it's because we put a lot of emphasis on these kind of special days. So that was a big success with Brownlow, and I really felt like it did put us on the map. That was the year that we launched. And then we did the same for the races. So we set up an online booking system. People could log in, pick the time that they wanted, get their makeup done. We had upstairs at a hair salon. We just did makeup for the races. And we had, let's say we had 10 artists doing makeups every hour from 5 till 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. We serviced a lot of people in a very short amount of time, and also put a lot of emphasis on pushing that PR-wise on social. So doing those sorts of things was very growth focused for the business. Cost us a lot of money.
I've got a question on that, because we're about to do something similar. I've mentioned before, we're meant to go up to Sydney on Friday. We'll bring the whole roster up from Melbourne, and then everyone else is pretty much in Sydney, bar one person who's on the Central Coast. We've got TikTok coming along to the event. It's essentially a lunch, plus we've got some stuff with all the creators doing brand campaigns, let's say, on the day, just as a test. So it's you can imagine 20 creators putting our name out there, essentially. When you think about those events, what was the most important thing? Was it the day itself and capturing it across social? Was it capturing it on video and then posting it later? Or was it something else?
I think it's just...
Combination?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The clients having a really good experience, being able to book online and pay by credit card before they even came to their appointment. So then they just rock in, sit down in their chair, get their makeup done and leave. And we were on time. Everyone got a special bottle of fizzy water with tonic written on it. We made our own branded lipsticks, just a small run of products. Everyone got a free lipstick to take home. It was an amazing experience. I think for the people that came as customers, had a really, really positive brand experience.
Yeah.
But also that would have meant far less if we hadn't been able to capture it well and post it on socials, and for people to see what we were doing and how many people we were doing, and that not just me doing it, because I was doing more my VIPs, my media clients and celebrities and influencers, but once I was full, I couldn't do them. So then they were going to my team, and it's not just saying that I was doing it, but my team was doing it as well.
Okay.
It was amazing. So it's
and then they post about it, it goes out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they were amazing brand exercises.
Yeah.
But in terms of growth and where we see Tonic going in the future and that sort of thing, we say Tonic has lots of tentacles, that it could go in any multitude of directions. We have our probably biggest footprint in the bridal wedding industry, but we also do a bit of education. We do workshops where people can come and learn how to do their own makeup. We also do makeup for photo shoots in the fashion industry. We also have influencer clients. So which one will be the one that will sort of take over? We don't really know, and we're interested in pursuing all those avenues. We want them all to do well. Yeah. So I don't know, we're still kind of figuring it out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one, because if you go down the route of, let's say, fashion or photography shoots, it can become a bit of a volume business.
Yeah.
The wedding side of things, it's less volume based.
We have a lot of volume with weddings.
I know. I was going to say, how many, do you know roughly how many bookings, assuming COVID wasn't happening?
Yeah. I don't have the exact numbers. Tahli would know, but just as an example, when we had the 5-day lockdown, which was in March, April.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, we had 28 bookings in 5 days.
Jesus.
Yeah. And they all had to be rescheduled. Can you imagine?
Of that, so these were all weddings, right?
Yeah. Some of them may have been a hens or a 40th or a 30th.
I'd be fascinated to know what most people did. Did they delay it a week? Because I know, we've had Laura and Steph on the podcast, and Laura had her wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, we were meant to be doing it.
Were you?
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. All right. So, and I noticed, I think I spoke to Dalton, and they had to move their wedding 6 months or later in the year or something, because Unfortunately, venues, like they're really, really booked
Yeah.
out. That's what I was saying before. We were so fucking lucky.
Yeah, you were really lucky. Some people just planned one wedding and had that one wedding.
Yeah.
And then we have other clients that have rescheduled 4 times.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so our original wedding was meant to be October, and I knew in February I made the call to move it to the following April.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, this is 100% going to be a thing.
Yeah.
I think it was actually it must have been March, actually. When it was that 13th, Friday the 13th, the Grand Prix was basically cancelled.
Yes.
That's when I was like, yeah, this is going to be a year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, good call.
it was a lucky call.
Yeah.
Very lucky call.
Yeah. We had some people who's like with that 5-day lockdown, the circuit breaker lockdown, it came in on the Friday, I think. And when they announced it and it was like coming in from midnight, we had some clients call Tahli and be like, can we have someone today? We're going to get married today.
Yeah.
And Tahli would call the artist and be like, can someone go and do makeup today? And all our artists were amazing. If they weren't working, they put their hand up, yep, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't their client, like that they were supposed to be doing the wedding, amazing if they were, because then they actually got to see that booking through.
Yeah.
And just like, go to her house now. She's jumped in the shower and they got married that day.
Yeah.
And that's happened a couple of times.
But that's a great human thing, right? Is like when you have moments like that,
Yeah.
is
Just like make it
you
happen.
you just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone gets it.
Yeah.
And it's the rescheduling is difficult because the client might reschedule for a day that their artist that they had chosen and had a trial with is already booked on another wedding. We're not going to pull them off someone else's wedding,
Yeah.
so they have to have, somebody else. But that's what's amazing about our team is they're all quite similar aesthetically. So anyone from our team people are going to be happy.
So when it comes to product differentiation, we've discussed that quality is that component, and the next stage of growth or change, it's sort of a wait and see this space.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. You've been in the industry for 15 plus years now.
Yeah.
Everyone says what is new or trending. I'm just intrigued to know what doesn't really change about the business ever.
What doesn't change? That's a good question because it's a big focus on what does change because the industry is completely different now to when I started.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I started, Facebook didn't even exist, let alone Instagram or YouTube. And Instagram and YouTube have completely changed the industry.
Yeah.
Completely. But what hasn't changed? I think just being dedicated, good at your job, easy to work with. You may have 100,000 followers on Instagram and you may be really, really good at putting makeup on yourself. But if you're not great at working on set, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, if you're not a good because it is a people business.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a bit of a douche to work with,
Right.
it's going to be pretty tough for you to do well in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you wish you got asked in a lot of you've done a lot of these interviews now. There's always the cliche questions. What do you wish people asked you more of? Or that you could talk more about? Don't you love that when you just sprung with one of those questions? You just like, can you send this to before?
I have the answer in my head. I'm trying to build the question to work out how to, I guess this is what I was thinking just before when we were talking about like what is growth for Tonic. We've spoken to like a lot of business mentors to try and help us grow the business. And it's really easy for someone who doesn't understand our business to say, there's like apps, like it's like Uber, but for a makeup artist. You put in your date and you put in your address and it like sends you a makeup artist. And trying to explain to people in business why that won't work for us. Yeah. And that like growth isn't the only measure of success.
No.
And that's probably something that I think is really important. Growth is really important, but also like making sure you can manage that growth because we could grow and do lots of things, but if we're not going to be able to maintain it, what's the point?
Yeah, and not everyone needs to be a tech company or a tech product. I feel like the industry's, whether it's a hair and makeup agency, whether it's a digital agency, whatever it is, the industry is guilty of that. People try and want to mimic tech products because they use them a lot.
Yeah.
And they think they have. I was guilty of that. We used to have packages listed on the website. But what I realized is actually we only ever need 15 clients. And over time, certain clients will leave and then others will come and they will spend more money with us because we've improved as an agency.
Yeah.
And that's what really matters. I feel like for you guys, that is sort of a similar direction is, you only have so much talent, but the quality continues to increase and maybe the type of things that you get to work on increases.
Yeah, totally.
What that is, I don't know because I'm, not you guys, you're in the depths of the industry and you're probably going to know what that is.
Yeah, and like, the people say, are you going to expand? Like, will you expand to Sydney? Will you expand to Byron or, other places in Australia? And it's like, we really easily could, and we really easily could recruit people just based off their Instagram. But something that I really learnt is that it's really easy to fake a lot on Instagram, and that I've seen a lot of really great Instagrams, and then when I see them work in person, I'm just like, it's probably not as good as I thought it was going to be. Or they might do beautiful makeup, but they don't have a great like bedside manner, or they don't present well personally, or don't have great like communication with their clients and that kind of thing. Or it might be a lot of focus on the makeup that they want to do, not focus on the makeup that the client wants, or listening to what the clients are after. You could do the best makeup in the world, but if it isn't what your client wants, they don't care.
Yeah.
They want to look good for them. It's not about you as the artist, it's about what the clients are after. So would we expand to those areas? Like, I'd love to, but it would mean me going and meeting people and recruiting people. I would, it's the personal touch is what makes us so strong.
Well, maybe that's the next thing, is like finding whether it's another business partner or another person that you and Tahli are comfortable with as being, that for us, for someone like Lauren, who's a creative director, the next thing for her is eventually becoming an executive creative director and having creative directors beneath her.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you need a Sydney creative director, or Byron or Brisbane or whatever it is.
Yeah. It could, and then in terms of the education, like, would I love to do more in that space? Like, absolutely. Would love to do that.
Do you think you ever drop doing day-to-day makeup?
I think that's what I really want to do. And that's what's also really hard, is that do I want to like quit my job to develop my business more? I don't really. I like putting makeup on people. I like doing photo shoots. I like working with my clients. So not doing that and just focusing on the business, I'm not sure. I think I'll miss it.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into some rapid fire questions to finish things off.
Sure.
I heard you thought about best purchase under $200.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, I did have to think about it. An Ecosa pillow.
Okay.
Yeah. Because waking up without back pain is
nice.
Yep.
Do you sleep on your back or your side?
Well, now either, but I used to sleep on my tummy.
Oh, really?
Which turns out really, really
terrible
bad for your back.
Yeah.
And an Ecosa pillow, you can't sleep on your tummy because it's weird.
Okay, so how do you spell that? Ecosa?
Yeah.
A-C-O-S-A?
I think it's E-C-O.
Okay.
Ecosa. It's one of those ones that it's like flat at the bottom and then it goes like that.
Okay, cool. Because I'm looking at I've just been served with a bunch of Instagram ads because my pillow's old as fuck. Like, it really needs to change, and it's super flat. And I just had like a sleep test, and I've got a mild apnea.
Okay.
So I snore, and it's only something that, because Lauren's a really deep sleeper, we only recently realised this, and there's not much I can do about it because I'm not stopping breathing. But the sleep specialist is like, you should probably look at maybe changing your pillow.
Yeah.
And like I told him, my mattress is like 7 years old. So you should probably get a new mattress.
Yeah.
It's still really comfy, but he's like, you need to change that stuff up. And so non-stop, I'm getting these like ergonomic pillows and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I just bought one, online. I hadn't tried it out. Heard it was good. Gave it a go.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. But if you're used to a very old flat pillow, it'll be a big adjustment.
Really?
Because it's quite firm and quite high.
So why did you get it? Because you were sleeping on your
we went away for a weekend or something and they had a pillow. It wasn't that brand, but one like that where it's like got the groove in the middle like that.
Yeah, better neck posture.
Yeah, and it was really good. And I just heard that was a good one.
So what did you notice? Like, you just didn't have back pain? Or?
Yeah, I just didn't wake up with like my whole body in pain.
Shit, okay. I really need to look at this and get down to it this week.
And stopping sleeping on my tummy probably helped.
Help things a little bit. Morning and evening routine, what does that look like?
Well, I now have a 1.5-year-old, so he wakes me up at like, let's say 7 on a good day.
Okay.
That's what we're aiming for. We're always aiming for 7.
Yep.
Sometimes it's earlier. Get him up, make him breakfast, I try and eat at the same time while he like runs circles around me. Depending on, well, it's hard for me to say an exact routine because every day is different for me. So sometimes I go to work even before he wakes up, but other times we'll get up together, and then my husband might take over the morning routine while I go and get ready and go to work.
Okay.
I never forget my skincare routine in the morning.
Have you got all the hyaluronic acids and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, all that, serums and sunscreen and...
I got a hydrofacial before the wedding.
Nice.
That shit's fucking addictive.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Whoa, look at all the gunk in there. It's like...
You come out like all shiny.
Yeah, so they sold me really well. They upsold me really well. They got me on all the acids and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's good.
It's good for you.
Yeah. So I really like doing all of that stuff. Like even when Brody was really young and I found that it was like even a struggle to have a shower and like get dressed, I would always wash my face and put my skincare on. That was just like a constant that made me feel like it takes a minute, and it made me feel like I was doing something special for myself and made me feel like I was still looking after myself.
Yeah,
so,
you still felt like a human.
Yeah.
Okay, so evening routine, what does that look like?
After Brody's gone to bed, my husband and I usually have dinner together, watch something, then spend some time with us each on our phones.
Yeah.
Watch something
else. Are you guys guilty of that, of watching the TV yet you're on your phones? And we're both
on our phones, yeah. But we will sort of get to a point where we've been like, all right, we've been doing that for long enough, put them away, let's watch something.
Or one of you will put it down and be like, why are you on your phone?
Yeah. It's like you were just doing that a minute ago.
That's a bad habit that we have.
Yeah. But yeah, then I'm always in bed earlier. And then I go upstairs, do the skincare again with the nighttime stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
I have my magnesium before bed, and then
I'm
usually in bed around 10.
A particular type of magnesium?
I'm using Wagner's at the moment. You just like powder, you drink it, mix it in with water and drink it.
Yeah, my PT got me onto, like, he's like, oh, you got to take glycinate magnesium. Okay. I'm like, okay.
For muscles?
Fine. Yeah, for like relaxing you at night.
It's so good.
I have to read, because I'm a very tense A-type individual. I have to read and take magnesium to like properly... Like I'll power down after half an hour. I can't be on my phone.
Yeah.
I won't fall asleep.
Yeah.
Speaking of watching the TV, and last question for you, what have you been watching lately that you would recommend to the audience?
We've been watching Conan O'Brien's travel series on Netflix. Okay. Have you seen it?
No, I've seen the trailer for it.
It's so funny. Okay. Like I wasn't a Conan fan. I didn't have Foxtel growing up. I didn't really know. I knew who Conan was, but I didn't know his humour. I had never watched the show, and my husband really liked him and said, let's watch his travel series. And oh man, did we laugh a lot. He's so funny. And so they're all good, but my recommendations are Cuba, Israel and Italy episodes are sick. Like fucking hilarious.
Yeah, because we need a new series. We just finished Startup. I would say Conan's like the only funny one of those late night TV show hosts.
Yeah.
He's a comedian.
Yeah.
Like he can do stand-up.
Yeah.
So, I remember when he came to Australia just before COVID and he was doing this stuff with like the Sydney Swans and it was so fucking funny.
Yeah.
He's a really funny guy.
Yeah.
How old is that series? Is it recent?
In the last couple of years, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. We've watched it a few times through because it's so funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. We'll make sure we link all that. Monica, where can people find you on the interwebs? They can find me on Instagram at MonicaGingold_beauty and on my website, monicagingold.com, and through Tonic. Tonic's Instagram is tonic.makeup.hair and tonicagency.com.au. Okay. When are you going to get on TikTok? Just worked out how to do reels on Instagram. Sorry, you just repurpose that onto TikTok. Seriously. Just doing the job used to be enough, and then just posting a photo of the job used to be enough. Now I have to take a video every time I do a makeup and edit it into a video. Every time I do a job or it looks like you're not working. TikTok as well. Yeah. I don't know. TikTok's the future though. Yeah. I don't want to get left behind. I'm not biased. At all. Monica, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you do like it, please subscribe and of course like if you're watching the YouTube video as well. We'd really appreciate that. You can also find our Clips channel in the description. For audio, if you're not already listening, you can search Uncommon on Pocket Cast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts quite easily. For video, if you're not watching, you can search Uncommon on YouTube. And for behind the scenes takes and clips on social media, then definitely check out @uncommon_show on Instagram. But otherwise, look, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, thanks for listening.